Marcus threw the car keys on the kitchen table without looking at her. I can't do this anymore, Sarah.
We have nothing left.
She stood frozen, one hand on her pregnant belly, watching her husband shove clothes into a duffel bag. Do what, Marcus? What are you talking about? He finally met her eyes. Cold. Empty. Like a stranger wearing her husband's face. Everything. This life. You, the baby, all of it. You don't mean that. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it together. No. He zipped the bag. Some things can't be fixed. I'm sorry. The door slammed. His car started. And Sarah stood alone in an apartment she didn't know was already lost, carrying a child whose father had just walked away from everything. 3 months later, she would inherit a worthless house from an aunt she barely remembered. That house would change everything. Before we continue, please subscribe to my channel and follow Sarah's incredible journey to the very end. Comment below which city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. The signs had been there for months. Sarah just hadn't wanted to see them. Marcus coming home late smelling like cigarettes when he'd quit smoking 2 years ago. The hushed phone calls he'd take in the bathroom with the water running. The way he flinched whenever she mentioned money. Work stress, he always said. The startup is killing me. She believed him because believing him was easier than asking questions she didn't want answered. That last morning before he packed his bag and walked out, Sarah had tried one more time. Marcus, talk to me, please. Whatever's happening, we can handle it together. He was standing at the window, his back to her. You don't understand, Sarah. You never understood. Then help me understand. He turned around and she saw something in his face that terrified her. Not anger, not sadness, nothing at all. I've made mistakes, he said quietly. Bad ones. And now it's too late. Too late for what? But he was already walking toward the bedroom. Already packing. Already gone in every way that mattered. Sarah followed him, her heart pounding. Marcus, I'm 7 months pregnant. You can't just leave. Whatever debt you're in, whatever trouble... He spun around so fast she stumbled backward. Debt. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You have no idea, Sarah. No idea what I've done. And when you find out... He stopped himself, shook his head. You're better off not knowing. Trust me. Don't I deserve the truth? The truth? He grabbed his bag and walked past her toward the door. The truth is, I'm not the man you married. Maybe I never was. Marcus. Don't look for me, Sarah. Don't try to find me. Just take care of yourself. And the baby. The door closed behind him. Sarah stood in the hallway for a long time, unable to move, unable to think, unable to process what had just happened. Then her phone rang. Mrs. Mitchell, this is First National Bank. We're calling about your delinquent mortgage payment. What delinquent payment? We're on autopay. Ma'am, the autopay was canceled 3 months ago. You're currently 90 days past due. We need to discuss your options before we proceed with foreclosure. Sarah's legs gave out. She slid down the wall phone, pressed to her ear, and felt the first crack split her world in half. The next 72 hours taught Sarah what betrayal really meant. She found the documents in Marcus's desk, the drawer he always kept locked. She broke it open with a hammer, hands shaking, praying she would find something that explained everything, something that made sense. What she found made no sense at all. Credit cards. 17 of them. All maxed out. All in both their names. A second mortgage on the apartment. Her signature at the bottom, except she'd never signed it. She'd never even seen the document before. Loan agreements from companies with names like Quick Cash Solutions and Easy Money Lending. Interest rates that looked like typos. 34%, 47%, 52%. And receipts. Hundreds and hundreds of receipts from online gambling sites. Wire transfers to offshore accounts. Statements from sports betting apps showing deposits of thousands of dollars at a time. Sarah spread everything across the kitchen table and did the math 3 times because she couldn't believe the number. $127,000. Her husband had accumulated $127,000 in debt, in her name, without telling her a single word. She called his phone. Disconnected. She called his business partner, Kevin. Kevin, where is Marcus? Sarah, Don't lie to me. Where is he? Silence. Then quietly, I don't know. He emptied the business account 2 weeks ago. Told me he needed it for an emergency. I trusted him. Kevin's voice cracked. I trusted him, and now I'm out $40,000. He stole from you too? I'm so sorry, Sarah. I had no idea he was... She hung up. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely dial the next number. Mom. Sarah, what's wrong? You sound terrible. Marcus left. He's been gambling. There's debt, Mom. So much debt. I don't know what to do. Oh, honey. Oh, no. Okay, listen to me. You need to come home. Come stay with us until I'll be... Can I really? Because I'm about to lose the apartment and I have nowhere. Of course you can. Her mother's voice was warm, reassuring. Everything Sarah needed to hear. Let me just talk to Richard first. You know how he is about surprises, but I'm sure it'll be fine. I'll call you back tonight. She didn't call back that night. She didn't call back the next day either. When Sarah finally reached her, her mother's voice had changed. Honey, I talked to Richard and the timing isn't great. His daughter is staying with us next month, and the guest room. Mom, I'm pregnant. I'm about to be homeless. I'm your daughter. I know, sweetheart, I know, but Richard feels like, well, with everything going on, maybe this isn't the best environment for you right now. The best environment, Mom, I need help. I can send you some money. Would 500 help? I could maybe do 1,000 if... Sarah hung up. She sat on the floor of her empty apartment and laughed until she cried. The eviction notice arrived 3 weeks later. 60 days to vacate. Non-negotiable. The bank had already started foreclosure proceedings. Sarah read the notice twice, then folded it carefully and put it in her pocket. She had learned by then that falling apart was a luxury she couldn't afford. She found a lawyer through a legal aid clinic. Patricia Chen, a tired woman in her 50s who'd clearly seen too many cases like Sarah's. Your husband committed fraud, Patricia said, flipping through the documents Sarah had brought. Identity theft, forgery, these are crimes. Can I press charges? You can try. But he's gone. No forwarding address, no employment records, nothing to trace. The police will file a report, but without knowing where he is. She shrugged. These cases almost never get prosecuted. What about the debt? I didn't sign most of these. My signature was forged. That's your strongest argument, but proving forgery costs money. Court fees, expert witnesses' depositions. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars and years of litigation. Even if you win, you might spend more fighting than you'd save. Sarah felt something inside her crack. So what am I supposed to do? Patricia looked at her with the particular kindness of someone delivering hopeless news. Honestly, negotiate what you can. Pay what you have to. Pray he left something behind worth selling. And start over. Start over with what I'm 7 months pregnant. I'm losing my home. I have nothing. You have yourself, Patricia said quietly. Sometimes that has to be enough. Sarah sold everything. The furniture Marcus hadn't taken went first. Then the television, the kitchen appliances, the artwork they'd bought together on their honeymoon in Mexico. She sold her jewelry piece by piece. The anniversary earrings bought her groceries for a month. The birthday bracelet covered a credit card minimum payment. The engagement ring was the hardest. Sarah sat in the pawn shop parking lot for 45 minutes before she could go inside. The ring had been Marcus's grandmother's. She'd worn it for 6 years through good times and bad through morning sickness and late-night fights and the slow decay she'd been too blind to see. The pawnbroker weighed it on a small scale. $450. It's worth at least $5,000. It's antique. Lady, I can give you $450 cash right now, or you can try selling it yourself and see what you get. Your choice. Sarah took the $450. She sat in her car afterward and cried for everything that ring had represented. The promises. The future. The life she'd thought she was building. Then she wiped her face, started the engine, and drove to her next appointment with a debt collector. The calls never stop. Morning, noon, night. Different numbers, different voices, same message. Mrs. Mitchell, this is regarding your outstanding balance. Mrs. Mitchell, we need to discuss your delinquent account. Mrs. Mitchell, failure to pay may result in legal action. Sarah learned to recognize the collection agencies by their phone numbers. She created a spreadsheet tracking who she owed how much when they called what they threatened. She negotiated like her life depended on it. I can pay $50 a month. That's all I have. Mrs. Mitchell, the minimum payment is $300. Then you'll get nothing, $50 a month, or I file for bankruptcy and you get $0. Some agencies took the deal, others didn't. Sarah learned who would bend and who would break, who was bluffing about lawsuits, and who might actually follow through. But even with negotiations, even with settlements, the math never worked. The debt was too big. Her resources were too small. She was bailing water from a sinking ship with a teaspoon. She lost the apartment on a cold October morning. Sarah watched the movers carry out the last of her boxes, mostly clothes, now a few photo albums, the things Marcus hadn't thought were worth stealing, and felt nothing at all. You okay, honey? The neighbor from down the hall, Mrs. Ramos, was watching from her doorway. Sarah had borrowed sugar from her once. They'd never spoken beyond pleasantries. "I'm fine." "Where are you going?" Sarah looked at her car loaded with everything she owned. "I don't know yet." Mrs. Ramos disappeared into her apartment and came back with a $50 bill. "For the baby," she said, pressing it into Sarah's hand. "When my husband left me, I had 3 kids and $20. People helped. Now I help. That's how it works." Sarah tried to refuse. Mrs. Ramos wouldn't let her. "You take it, and someday when things are better, you help someone else. Promise me." "I promise." Sarah drove away with $50, a car full of boxes, and a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. The first motel was $47 a night. Sarah did the math. Her severance from the architecture firm was almost gone. Her savings had vanished into debt payments. She had maybe 3 weeks before she'd be sleeping in her car. The room smelled like cigarette smoke and despair. The carpet had stains Sarah didn't want to identify. The bathroom faucet dripped constantly, a rhythm that kept her awake at night, but it had walls, a door that locked, a bed where she could rest her aching back and swollen feet. She found work through a temp agency. Data entry, minimum wage, no questions asked about why a licensed architect was typing numbers into spreadsheets. Her supervisor, a thin man named Gerald with a permanent frown, looked at her belly on her first day. "How far along?" 7.5 months. "You planning to work through till the end?" "I'm planning to work as long as I can stand up." He nodded slowly. "My wife worked till the day she delivered our first. Nurses had to drag her to the hospital." He almost smiled. "You need anything, you let me know. Bathroom breaks, whatever. I've been there." It was the first kindness she'd experienced in weeks. Sarah cried in the bathroom for 10 minutes, then went back to typing numbers. The letter arrived on a Friday. Sarah found it tucked under her windshield wiper when she came out of the motel room. Strange place for mail, she thought. Strange envelope, thick, official-looking, with a return address from some county office in Kentucky she'd never heard of. She almost threw it away. More debt, probably. Another collector who'd tracked her down. Another bill she couldn't pay. But something made her open it. Inside, she found a letter informing her that Margaret Ann Holloway, her maternal great-aunt, had passed away 8 weeks earlier. Sarah had to read the name twice before she remembered. Aunt Maggie, her grandmother's younger sister. A woman who'd moved to Kentucky decades ago and never came back. Sarah's mother used to get Christmas cards from her, always with a $20 bill tucked inside for Sarah. The handwriting had gotten shakier over the years, then stopped altogether. Sarah hadn't thought about her in years. Now she was dead. And somehow, inexplicably, she'd left everything to Sarah. The everything was detailed in the attached paperwork. A residential property in rural Kentucky, 3.2 acres of land, a house described in language that made Sarah's stomach drop. Significant structural concerns. Extensive deferred maintenance. No current market appraisal due to condition and location. Property has been vacant for approximately 14 months. A handwritten note was paper-clipped to the final page. "Ms. Mitchell, your Aunt Maggie was a good woman. She kept to herself, but she had a good heart. She talked about you sometimes. Said you were strong like her. The house needs work, I won't pretend otherwise. But it's yours free and clear. No mortgage, no liens. In times like these, that means something. I hope you'll come see it before making any decisions. Sincerely, Martha Patterson, County Clerk." Sarah read the letter 3 times. A house. An actual house. Free and clear. She pulled up the address on her phone using the motel's spotty Wi-Fi. The property appeared on the satellite map as a small rectangle at the end of a dirt road surrounded by fields and trees, miles from anything resembling a town. It looked like nothing. It looked like the most beautiful thing Sarah had ever seen. She called the county clerk's office the next morning. "Mrs. Patterson, my name is Sarah Mitchell. You sent me a letter about my aunt's property." "Sarah, I was hoping you'd call. How are you doing, honey?" The warmth in the woman's voice caught Sarah off guard. "I've been better, honestly." "Your aunt said you might be going through a hard time. She kept up with things more than people knew. She knew about everything." She didn't say specifics, just that family was important and that she wanted to make sure someone she cared about was taken care of. Sarah's throat tightened. "I never visited her, not once. I should have visited." She understood. People have their own lives. What matters is you're here now. Well, not here yet, but you know what I mean. Mrs. Patterson chuckled softly. "When can you come see the property?" "As soon as possible. I don't have much keeping me where I am." "Then come. The house isn't pretty, I'll warn you now, but it's standing, and it's yours. Sometimes that's enough to start over." Sarah packed her car that afternoon. The drive took 14 hours. Her Honda made alarming noises around hour 9, a rattling under the hood that got worse on hills. Sarah pulled over twice to let the engine cool, praying it would hold together long enough. She ate gas station crackers for dinner. Slept for 3 hours at a rest stop because driving while exhausted felt too dangerous with the baby so close to coming. The GPS led her deeper and deeper into unfamiliar territory. Highway to county road to something barely paved to a dirt path that her phone insisted was a legitimate street. Then she saw the house. Her first thought was the paperwork was generous. Her second thought was, this is mine. The building leaned slightly to the left as if the foundation had given up trying. Paint peeled in long strips from every surface. Half the windows were cracked. The porch sagged in the middle like a tired smile, but the roof looked intact, the walls were standing, and there was a door with a lock that could keep the world out. Sarah parked her car and sat there for a long moment. "What do you think, baby girl?" she whispered, rubbing her belly. "Is this home?" The baby kicked hard. Sarah chose to interpret that as yes. She met Mrs. Patterson the next morning at the county office. Martha Patterson was exactly what Sarah had imagined from her voice, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes, gray hair pinned back practically, and the weathered hands of someone who'd worked hard all her life. "You look exhausted, honey. Did you sleep in that house last night?" "In my car, actually. The house was a lot to process in the dark." "Smart. That place has been empty too long. No telling what's moved in." Sarah signed paperwork for an hour. Property transfers, tax documents, utility accounts, Mrs. Patterson walked her through everything, patiently explaining each form in plain language. "Now," Martha said when they were almost done, "there's one more thing." She pulled a small key from her desk drawer. "Maggie gave me this about 5 years ago. Said if anything happened to her, I should make sure whoever inherited the house got it. It's for a safety deposit box at First Kentucky Bank just down the street." "Did she say what's in it?" "No, and I never asked. Maggie was private about her business, but she made a point of this key, so I imagine it matters." Sarah took the key. It was small, ordinary, unremarkable. "Thank you for everything." "Thank me by making something of that place. Maggie would have liked that." The bank was a small brick building 3 blocks away. Sarah walked there slowly, trying not to hope too much. The box probably contained old documents, maybe some cash, maybe nothing useful at all. The bank manager, a young man who seemed surprised anyone still used safety deposit boxes, led her to the vault. "Take your time," he said. "No rush." Sarah waited until he left, then opened the box. Money first, cash wrapped in rubber bands. She counted it quickly, $2,847, more than she'd had in months. Below the cash were folders, legal documents, tax records, correspondence with companies she'd never heard of. One folder was marked "Important" in careful handwriting. Sarah opened it. What she found didn't make sense at first. Legal language about mineral rights easements, extraction agreements. A company called Appalachian Natural Gas. Dates going back to 1987. She read slowly, piecing together what her aunt had done. In 1987, a gas company had approached Maggie about drilling rights to her land. The property sat on the edge of a shale formation that extended across eastern Kentucky. Maggie hadn't sold. Instead, she'd negotiated a lease. The company could extract natural gas from beneath her land. In exchange, they'd pay her annually an amount indexed to production rates and inflation. Sarah found payment records going back decades. The amounts had started small, a few $1,000s, but they'd grown steadily. The most recent statement showed an annual payment of $14,327. Sarah stared at the number. $14,000 a year, automatically, forever, just for owning land that everyone thought was worthless. She sat in that bank vault for a long time, holding papers that changed everything. The drive back to the house felt different. Sarah saw things she'd missed the night before. The land stretching out in every direction, open and quiet. The old barn that could be repaired. The garden space where someone had once grown food. She saw possibility. Inside the house, daylight revealed the full scope of the challenge. Water stains on every ceiling. Wallpaper peeling from walls. A kitchen that hadn't been updated since the 1970s. But Sarah also saw a room that could be a nursery. A fireplace that could provide heat. A porch where her daughter could play someday. She rolled up her sleeves and got to work. The first week nearly broke her. She cleaned for 14 hours a day, stopping only when her back hurt too much to continue. She hauled trash to the dump in loads that filled her car trunk. She killed spiders, chased mice, scrubbed decades of grime from surfaces that fought back. Her hands cracked, and Picious bled. Her body ached in places she didn't know could ache. The baby kicked constantly as if protesting the disruption. But slowly, impossibly, the house began to emerge. She found a job at a diner in town. Dolores, the owner, hired her on the spot. Maggie Holloway's place, huh? You knew her. Everyone knew her. Kept to herself, but showed up when it mattered. Donated to the food bank every Christmas. Never missed a community event. Dolores handed her an apron. You need work, I need help. 6 to 2, 4 days a week. You eat free on shift. Deal. Deal. Sarah worked mornings at the diner, afternoons at the house. She learned to fix pipes from YouTube videos. She learned to patch drywall from the library. She learned to do things she'd never imagined doing because there was no one else to do them. Help came from places she didn't expect. Jim Henderson showed up one morning, toolbox in hand. Wife sent me, said you're fixing up Maggie's place by yourself. I can't afford to pay. Did I ask for money? He pushed past her into the house. Show me what needs doing. Eleanor Henderson came with casseroles and advice. That stove's a death trap. Let Jim look at it before you use it again. That insulation's worthless. You'll freeze come winter. That wallpaper has to go. I'll help you strip it Saturday. Ruth, the nurse at the rural clinic, became an ally. Blood pressure's a little high. You need to rest more. I can't rest. There's too much to do. Then do it slower. That baby needs you healthy more than she needs a perfect house. Sarah tried to slow down. She wasn't very good at it. The first gas company payment arrived in March. Sarah drove to the bank to make sure it was real. She asked the teller to check 3 times. Ma'am, the money's there, $14,327, deposited yesterday. Sarah walked outside and sat on a bench. She thought about where she'd been 6 months ago. A motel room, a car full of boxes, a husband who'd stolen everything and vanished. Now she had a house, a job, a community that was slowly becoming family, and an income that would come every year as long as she owned this land. She cried on that bench for 20 minutes. An old man walking by asked if she was okay. I'm fine, Sarah said, wiping her face. I'm actually fine. I think that's why I'm crying. He nodded like that made perfect sense. The baby came early. 2 weeks before her due date, Sarah woke at 3 a.m. with contractions she knew were real. She called Eleanor. It's happening. On my way. Don't you dare move. Jim drove while Eleanor sat in the back with Sarah timing contractions and telling stories about her own deliveries to keep Sarah's mind off the pain. My third came so fast the doctor almost missed it, just popped right out like he'd been waiting for his cue. That's not helping Eleanor. Sure it is. You're not thinking about the contractions, are you? Sarah laughed, despite herself. Then another contraction hit and laughing seemed like a distant memory. The labor lasted 11 hours. 11 hours of pain and fear, and moments when Sarah was certain she couldn't do this, followed by moments when she knew she had no choice. At 2:23 in the afternoon, Emma Rose Mitchell came into the world. They placed her on Sarah's chest. She was small, perfect, dark hair. Tiny fingers that curled around Sarah's thumb like she'd been waiting her whole existence for this moment. Hi, baby girl, Sarah whispered. I'm your mom, and I'm going to give you the best life I can, I promise. Emma opened her eyes. They wouldn't focus properly for weeks, Sarah knew that from the books. But it felt like her daughter was looking right at her, like she understood everything they'd survived to get here. Sarah held her daughter and finally understood why she'd fought so hard. Not for herself, for this, for her, for everything Emma would become. Eleanor was waiting when they came home from the hospital. The house had been transformed. The nursery was finished, painted soft yellow, with the crib assembled and ready. The refrigerator was stocked. Fresh flowers sat on the kitchen table. You didn't have to do all this, Sarah said, her voice breaking. Of course we did. That's what neighbors are for. I don't know how to thank you. Eleanor took Emma from Sarah's arms, cradling her with the practiced ease of a grandmother. Thank me by raising this baby right, by being there for the next person who needs help, by living a life that would make Maggie proud. Sarah looked around the house that had seemed like rock bottom just months ago. The floors still creaked. The walls still needed work. 100 projects remained unfinished. But Emma was here, healthy, safe, and Sarah was home. Finally, impossibly home. The first night alone with Emma. Sarah didn't sleep at all. Every sound made her heart race. Every silence made her check if Emma was still breathing. She sat in the rocking chair Eleanor had brought over, holding her daughter against her chest, counting the tiny breaths. You're okay, she whispered into the darkness. We're okay. We're going to be okay. Emma slept peacefully, unaware that her mother was terrified. 3 weeks after the birth, Sarah went back to work. Dolores took one look at her and shook her head. "You look like death warmed over." "Thanks, that's exactly what I was going for." "The baby sleeping." "What sleep?" Dolores laughed and poured her a coffee. "It gets easier, I promise. Somewhere around month 4, you'll actually remember what being human feels like. I'm holding you to that." Sarah worked her shift with Emma in a portable bassinet in the back office. Dolores had insisted. "I'm not having you pay for childcare when there's a perfectly good corner back here. Baby cries, you take a break? Simple." "Dolores, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm telling. Now get out there. Table 6 needs coffee." The routine became Sarah's lifeline. Wake at 5. Feed Emma. Shower if there was time. Drive to the diner. Work until 2. Drive home. Feed Emma again. Work on the house until dark. Feed Emma. Try to sleep. Repeat. Some days she felt like she was drowning. Other days she felt almost normal. Most days fell somewhere in between. 6 weeks after Emma was born, the first bill arrived. Sarah opened the envelope expecting a utility statement. Instead, she found a letter from a collection agency she'd thought she'd settled with months ago. "Dear Mrs. Mitchell, our records indicate an outstanding balance of $12,847. Despite previous communications, this debt remains unpaid. If we do not receive payment within 30 days, we will be forced to pursue legal action, including but not limited to wage garnishment and property liens." Sarah read it 3 times. She had settled this debt. She had documentation. She had confirmation emails. She called the number on the letter. "Apex Collections. How may I direct your call?" "My name is Sarah Mitchell. I received a letter about a debt I already settled." "One moment, please." Hold music, then a different voice, smoother, more practiced. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is David Park. I'm a senior account manager. I understand you have concerns about your account." "I don't have an account. I settled this debt 4 months ago. I have the paperwork." "I see. Well, our records show the settlement was never finalized. The original creditor rejected the terms." "That's impossible. I have a confirmation." "Mrs. Mitchell, I understand this is frustrating, but the fact remains that you owe $12,847. Now we can work out a payment plan." "I'm not paying a debt I already settled." "Then we'll have no choice but to proceed with legal action, including a lien on any property you own." Sarah's blood went cold. "You can't do that." "I assure you we can. Kentucky law allows us to." "I need to speak to a lawyer." "That's certainly your right, but I'd encourage you to resolve this quickly. Legal fees add up fast." Sarah hung up. Her hands were shaking. She dug through her files until she found the settlement paperwork. Everything was there. The agreement, the confirmation. The receipt showing the payment had cleared, but the collection agency didn't care about her paperwork. They cared about the house. Sarah called Patricia Chen, the lawyer who'd helped her back in Boston. "Patricia, I need help. A collection agency is claiming I owe money I already paid. They're threatening to put a lien on my property." "Send me everything you have. Settlement agreement, confirmation, bank statements showing the payment. I'll look into it." "How much is this going to cost?" Silence, then carefully, "Let's see what we're dealing with first." Sarah knew what that meant. It meant more money she didn't have. She stayed up until midnight organizing documents, scanning pages, writing out a timeline of every payment and every communication. Emma woke at 2. Sarah fed her in the dark, too exhausted to turn on lights. "We're going to figure this out," she told her daughter. "We always do." Emma grabbed her finger and held on tight. 3 days later, Patricia called back. "Good news and bad news." "Give me the good news first. I need it." "The settlement was valid. You have documentation proving you paid. This collection agency bought the debt from someone else and either didn't get the full records or is hoping you'll pay twice." "That's the good news. The good news is you're not legally obligated to pay them. The bad news is they can still make your life miserable. They can dispute your documentation. They can tie you up in court for months. They can absolutely file a lien while the case is pending." "So what do? You fight? I can send them a cease and desist letter along with copies of your settlement documentation. That might make them back off, or it might not. And if it doesn't, then we go to court and hope the judge sees it our way." Sarah closed her eyes. "How much?" "For the letter, I'll do it pro bono. We helped each other through the worst of it back in Boston. Consider it a favor, and if it goes to court, let's cross that bridge when we get there." Sarah thanked her and hung up. She sat at her kitchen table looking at the stack of documents that represented her past and felt the old fear creeping back. She'd thought she was free. She'd thought the debt was behind her. But Marcus's betrayal kept finding new ways to reach her. The letter from Patricia went out a week later. Sarah waited. 2 weeks, 3, a month. No response from the collection agency. No threats, no calls. Sometimes they just give up, Patricia explained. They buy these debts in bulk. If one person fights back hard enough, they move on to easier targets. So it's over. Probably. Keep that documentation forever just in case. But yeah, I think you won this one. Sarah hung up the phone and cried with relief. Then she fed Emma went to work and tried to pretend her hands weren't still shaking. Summer arrived hot and heavy. Emma grew faster than Sarah could track. 3 months old, then 4, then 5. Smiling, laughing, reaching for things. Discovering her own hands like they were the most fascinating objects in the universe. The house came together slowly. Jim Henderson helped Sarah replace the worst of the plumbing. Eleanor taught her how to can vegetables from the garden she'd planted. Ruth from the clinic became a regular visitor, checking on Emma's development and Sarah's sanity. "You're doing good," Ruth said one afternoon, watching Emma play on a blanket. "Better than good, that baby is thriving. I feel like I'm barely surviving most days." That's motherhood. You feel like you're failing, but somehow the kid turns out fine anyway. Ruth smiled. "My 3 are all grown now, successful, happy, only slightly traumatized. I consider that a win." Sarah laughed. It felt good to laugh. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Did you ever feel like you were waiting for the other shoe to drop, like things were going too well and something bad had to be coming?" Ruth was quiet for a moment. "All the time, still do sometimes. But here's what I've learned, the shoe drops whether you're waiting for it or not. Might as well enjoy the good times while they last. That's either very wise or very depressing. Little bit of both." Ruth stood up. "Same time next week." "Same time next week." The other shoe dropped in August. Sarah was at the diner halfway through her shift when her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Unknown numbers usually meant collectors or scammers, but something made her pick up. "Hello." "Sarah." The voice hit her like a physical blow. She knew that voice. She'd heard it in her nightmares for months. "Marcus." Dolores looked up from the register. Sarah held up a hand and walked toward the back office. "Sarah, please don't hang up." "Where are you? Do you have any idea what you did to me? I know. I'm so sorry. I'm calling because I need to tell you something." "You don't get to tell me anything. You destroyed my life. You left me pregnant and alone with 6 figures of debt." "I'm dying, Sarah." The words stopped her cold. "What?" "Liver failure. The doctors say I have maybe 6 months, probably less." His voice cracked. "I know I don't deserve anything from you. I know I destroyed everything, but I needed you to know that I'm sorry for all of it." Sarah leaned against the wall, trying to process. "Where are you?" "Vegas. I've been here since I left. Thought I could win it back, the money I lost. I thought if I could just hit one big score, I could come back and fix everything." "That's not how gambling works, Marcus." "I know that now. I know a lot of things now." He coughed a wet sound that went on too long. "There's something else. Something I need to tell you about the debts." "I don't want to hear about. Please, just listen. When I left, there was one account I didn't touch. An IRA I set up when we first got married. About $30,000. I put it in your name only as a backup, just in case." Sarah's heart stopped. "What?" "The account number is in the bottom drawer of my desk. That old desk from my parents' house. I left it with Kevin when I closed the office. It should still be there." "Marcus." "Take the money, Sarah. Use it for the baby, for whatever you need. It's the only thing I can give you now." "Why didn't you tell me about this before?" "Because I'm a coward. Because I thought I'd come back someday and fix everything. Because..." His voice broke. "Because I was ashamed? I'm still ashamed. I'll die ashamed." Sarah didn't know what to feel. Anger, grief, something that might have been pity. "Is there someone with you? Someone taking care of you? A nurse? Hospice? It's not so bad. They keep me comfortable." "Marcus, you don't have to forgive me. I don't expect you to. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry, and that the baby is it, a boy or a girl. A girl, Emma." "Emma." He said the name like a prayer. "That's beautiful. I bet she's beautiful." She is. Tell her. Tell her I'm sorry I'll never meet her. Tell her that her father made terrible mistakes, but he never stopped loving her, even before she was born. Sarah wiped tears she didn't know she'd been crying. I have to go, Marcus. I know. Goodbye, Sarah. Thank you for answering. The line went dead. Sarah stood in the back office of the diner, phone in hand, and felt the ground shift beneath her feet. She called Kevin that afternoon. The desk is still here, he said, sounding uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do with it. You want me to look in the drawer? Please? She heard shuffling, papers moving. There's an envelope here, says Sarah on it. What's inside? More shuffling. Account statements. Looks like, yeah, it's an IRA, in your name. Balance is? Holy crap, Sarah, it's $34,000. Sarah sat down hard on her kitchen floor. $34,000. Enough to finish the house. Enough for an emergency fund. Enough to breathe. Kevin, can you overnight that to me? Already on it. Sarah, I'm sorry about everything. I should have seen what he was doing. I should have... It wasn't your fault. Still, if there's anything I can do. You're doing it? Thank you. She hung up and sat there for a long time, trying to make sense of a world where the man who destroyed her life had also saved it. The envelope arrived 2 days later. Sarah took it to the bank and opened the account in her name. The money was real, accessible, hers. She didn't touch it right away. It felt like blood money. Like taking it would mean forgiving Marcus for everything he'd done. But Emma needed new clothes. The furnace needed replacing before winter. The property taxes were due in October. Sarah took out $5,000 and tried not to feel guilty. Marcus died 3 weeks later. Kevin called to tell her. The hospice said it was peaceful. He went in his sleep. Sarah listened to the words and felt nothing. Not relief, not grief, just emptiness where something should have been. There's going to be a small service in Vegas. You don't have to come. I just thought you should know. I'm not coming. I understand. Kevin, did he say anything else at the end? He talked about you, about Emma. He said he hoped you'd find happiness, that you deserved it more than anyone he knew. Sarah thanked him and ended the call. She walked out to the porch where Emma was sleeping in her bassinet and sat down next to her daughter. Your father is gone, she said quietly. He was a complicated man who did terrible things, but he loved you in his way. I'll make sure you know that someday. Emma slept on peaceful and unaware. Sarah watched her daughter breathe and made a decision. She would take the money, all of it. She would use it to build something good from the wreckage Marcus left behind. It wouldn't be forgiveness, but it might be redemption. Fall came quickly. Sarah used the IRA money strategically. New furnace, roof repairs, an emergency fund that actually deserved the name. For the first time since Marcus left, she wasn't living paycheck to paycheck. It felt strange, almost wrong. She kept waiting for something to go bad, but nothing did. Emma hit milestones like clockwork, rolling over, sitting up, babbling sounds that might have been words. The gas payment came in March, right on schedule. $1,427 deposited automatically. Sarah looked at her bank balance and realized she had more money than she'd ever had in her life. Not wealthy, not even comfortable by most standards, but stable, secure, safe. She started thinking about the future, not just surviving the next week or the next month, actually planning for years ahead. I want to take some classes, she told Dolores one morning. Online courses, architecture stuff, get my certification current again. You thinking about leaving me? Not soon, but eventually maybe. I want Emma to see her mom do something with her life. Dolores nodded slowly. Maggie would be proud of you, you know. She always said her niece was something special. She barely knew me. She knew enough. Dolores refilled her coffee cup. You remind me of her. Same stubborn streak, same refusal to give up. I'll take that as a compliment. It is one. Spring brought growth in more ways than one. Emma started crawling, then pulling herself up on furniture, then taking her first wobbly steps. Sarah captured every milestone on her phone, sending photos to Eleanor and Ruth and Patricia back in Boston. She's walking. Ruth exclaimed when she saw, already she's not even a year old. She's determined. Gets that from me. Heaven help us all. The house, too, continued its transformation. Sarah painted Emma's room herself, a soft lavender that caught the morning light. She refinished the hardwood floors in the living room. She planted flowers along the front walk. The place that had looked like a teardown was starting to look like a home. Neighbors noticed. "You've done wonders with that place," Jim Henderson said one afternoon, looking around approvingly. "Maggie let it go toward the end. Nice to see it cared for again." "I couldn't have done it without your help." "Sure you could have. Would have taken longer, that's all." He smiled. "You're good people, Sarah. This town's lucky to have you." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you, Jim. That means more than you know." On Emma's first birthday, Sarah threw a party. Nothing fancy. Cake from the bakery in town. Balloons from the dollar store. A few presents wrapped in newspaper because gift wrap seemed wasteful. But the house was full. Eleanor and Jim. Dolores and her husband. Ruth and her teenage granddaughter. Half a dozen other neighbors Sarah had met over the past year. People who'd become family. "Make a wish, baby girl," Sarah said, holding Emma in front of the single candle. Emma grabbed at the flame. Sarah blew it out quickly. "Close enough." Everyone laughed. Later, after the guests had gone and Emma was asleep in her crib, Sarah sat on the porch and looked at the stars. 1 year ago, she'd been homeless and pregnant, holding a letter about a worthless house. Now she had a home, a community, a daughter who was healthy and happy, and somehow, against all odds, hope. "Thank you, Aunt Maggie," she whispered into the night. "I don't know why you chose me, but I promise I won't waste it." The wind rustled through the trees. Sarah chose to believe it was an answer. 2 weeks after Emma's birthday, a letter arrived. Sarah recognized the return address immediately. Appalachian Natural Gas. Her heart seized. The lease. Something was wrong with the lease. She tore open the envelope with shaking hands. "Dear Ms. Mitchell, we are writing to inform you of changes to your mineral rights lease agreement. Due to increased production in the Eastern Kentucky Shale Formation, your annual payment will be adjusted effective immediately. Please see the enclosed documentation for details." Sarah flipped to the next page. The new annual payment was listed at the bottom. She read it 3 times to make sure she wasn't hallucinating. $23, $450. The payment had increased by nearly $9,000. Sarah sat down on her porch steps and started laughing. Laughing and crying and shaking all at once. Because the house that everyone said was worthless kept proving them wrong. Because Aunt Maggie's careful planning kept paying dividends. Because sometimes after everything falls apart, life finds a way to give you more than you lost. Emma's cry came through the baby monitor. Sarah wiped her face, tucked the letter in her pocket, and went to feed her daughter. There would be time to celebrate later. Right now, she had a life to live. The increased payment changed everything and nothing. Sarah still woke at 5, still worked at the diner, still came home exhausted and covered in coffee stains. But now, when she looked at her bank account, she didn't feel the familiar clench of fear. She enrolled in online architecture courses 3 weeks after the letter arrived. "You sure about this?" Dolores asked when Sarah told her. "That's a lot to take on with a baby and a job." "I'm sure. I need to build something for Emma, something real." "Honey, you've already built plenty. Look at that house. Look at that little girl." "I know, but I want her to see her mom doing more than surviving. I want her to see me thriving." Dolores nodded slowly. "Maggie said the same thing once, said she didn't want to just exist, wanted to matter." "Did she matter, I mean? More than she knew." Emma turned 18 months old on a Tuesday in September. She was talking now. Not full sentences, but words that made sense. "Mama, no, more, mine." The last one came up a lot. "Mine," Emma shrieked, grabbing a toy from Sarah's hands. "Yes, baby, yours." Sarah watched her daughter toddle across the living room floor and felt something she couldn't name. Pride, maybe. Or wonder. This tiny person who'd come into the world with nothing but Sarah's love was becoming someone. A real someone with opinions and preferences and a stubborn streak that was definitely genetic. The knock on the door came at 7 in the evening. Sarah wasn't expecting anyone. Eleanor always called first. Ruth had office hours. Dolores never left the diner before closing. She picked up Emma and went to the door. A man stood on her porch. Expensive suit, polished shoes, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Ms. Mitchell, Sarah Mitchell." "Who's asking?" "My name is Richard Crane. I represent Consolidated Energy Partners. I was hoping we could talk about your property." Sarah's grip on Emma tightened. "I'm not interested in selling. I haven't even made an offer yet." "You don't need to. The answer is no." Richard Crane's smile didn't waver. "Ms. Mitchell, I think you should hear what we're prepared to offer. The mineral rights alone are worth, I know what they're worth. They're worth exactly what they pay me every year, which is more than enough. But a lump sum payment could set you up for life. Your daughter's education, a bigger house, whatever you want. What I want is for you to get off my porch." Something flickered behind his eyes. The smile cooled by a few degrees. I understand you're protective of your property. That's admirable. But I should tell you that Consolidated has been acquiring land in this area for months. Eventually, you'll be the only holdout. That can create complications. Is that a threat? It's information. Take my card. Think about it. He held out a business card. Sarah didn't take it. Good night, Mr. Crane. She closed the door in his face and locked it. Emma looked up at her. Bad man. I don't know, baby. Maybe. Sarah called Jim Henderson the next morning. You know anything about Consolidated Energy Partners? Jim was quiet for a moment. They've been sniffing around. Bought the Miller place last month, and the Peterson property the month before that. Why? New drilling technology from what I hear. They want to expand operations. Your land is right in the middle of their target area. What happens if I don't sell? They work around you, or they make life difficult until you change your mind. Can they do that? They can try? Big companies have deep pockets and long memories. Jim paused. You want my advice? Always. Get a lawyer, a good one, someone who knows energy law, and don't sign anything until they've looked at it. Sarah hung up and immediately called Patricia Chen. I need a referral, energy law, someone who can go up against a big company. What's going on? Sarah explained. Patricia listened without interrupting. I know someone, Thomas Wright. He's in Louisville. Expensive, but he's beaten Consolidated before. How expensive? $500 an hour, but for an initial consultation, he might cut you a deal. Sarah did the math in her head. $500 an hour was terrifying. But losing the land that Aunt Maggie had protected for 40 years was worse. Give me his number. Thomas Wright's office was 3 hours away. Sarah made the drive on a Thursday, leaving Emma with Eleanor for the day. You be good for Mrs. Henderson, she told her daughter. Good, Emma agreed, but already reaching for Eleanor's hand. The law office was intimidating, all glass and steel and people in suits who looked like they'd never worried about money in their lives. Thomas Wright was not what Sarah expected. He was 60-something with gray hair and kind eyes and a handshake that felt like a promise. His office was cluttered with books and papers and a photo of what looked like grandchildren on his desk. So you're the woman who slammed the door on Richard Crane. News travels fast. In this business, always. He gestured to a chair. Sit, tell me everything. Sarah talked for an hour, about Marcus, about the debt, about inheriting Maggie's house, about the mineral rights lease, about Crane showing up on her porch. Thomas listened, taking notes, asking occasional questions. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair. Your aunt was smart. That lease she negotiated in 1987 is ironclad. Consolidated can't touch the mineral rights without your consent. So I'm safe. Legally, yes. Practically. He shrugged. Companies like Consolidated don't give up easily. They'll try to pressure you. Lowball offers, implied threats, maybe some harassment at the edges of what's legal. What do? You hold the line. You document everything. Every phone call, every letter, every visit. And if they cross any lines, you call me immediately. I can't afford to call you every time something happens. Thomas smiled. Tell you what, I'll put you on retainer. Flat fee $2,000 a year. Anything related to Consolidated I handle. Consider it an investment. An investment in what? In pissing off a company I've wanted to beat for 20 years. Sarah laughed despite herself. Deal. The pressure started 2 weeks later. First, a letter from Consolidated's legal department. Preliminary notice about potential environmental assessments on adjacent properties. Nothing threatening, but clearly designed to remind Sarah that they were watching. Then a visit from a county inspector who'd never inspected anything on Sarah's property before. He found 3 minor violations that had somehow escaped notice for 40 years. You'll need to fix these within 30 days or face fines. Sarah fixed them in 2 weeks, documenting every repair with photographs and receipts. Then a surveyor appeared at the edge of her property, measuring and marking. Sarah marched out to confront him. This is private property. I'm on the public right-of-way, ma'am. Perfectly legal. Who sent you? The surveyor didn't answer. He didn't have to. Sarah called Thomas Wright. They're testing you, he said. Seeing how you respond. Keep documenting. Don't engage directly. Let them make mistakes. What if they don't make mistakes? Everyone makes mistakes eventually, especially when they're impatient. Emma turned 2 in a blur of cake and candles and too many presents from Eleanor. You're spoiling her, Sarah said, watching her daughter tear through wrapping paper. That's what grandmothers do. You're not her grandmother. Close enough, Eleanor smiled. She's a good girl, Sarah. You're doing right by her. I'm trying. That's all any of us can do. The online courses were harder than Sarah expected. She'd been out of architecture for 3 years. The software had changed. The standards had updated. She felt like she was learning everything from scratch. But she kept going. Late nights after Emma was asleep, hunched over her laptop, working through problems that made her brain hurt. Early mornings before her shift, reviewing material while coffee went cold beside her. You look exhausted, Dolores observed. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're running on fumes and stubbornness. Story of my life. Take a day off. Sleep in. Let Eleanor watch Emma. I can't afford to. That's an order, not a suggestion. You're no good to anyone if you collapse. Sarah took the day off. She slept until noon, something she hadn't done since before Emma was born. When she woke up, she felt almost human. Maybe Dolores had a point. Spring arrived with unexpected news. Sarah was at the diner halfway through her shift when her phone buzzed with an email notification. She almost ignored it. But something made her look. Dear Ms. Mitchell, we are pleased to inform you that your application for the Rural Architecture Initiative has been accepted. You have been awarded a grant of $15,000 to support the completion of your professional certification and the establishment of a rural design practice. Sarah read it 4 times. She'd applied for the grant months ago, never expecting to actually get it. It was competitive, hundreds of applicants. She'd figured her non-traditional background would disqualify her immediately, but here it was. $15,000. Enough to finish her certification, enough to maybe possibly start building something real. What's wrong? Dolores asked, seeing her face. Nothing's wrong. Something's right for once. She showed Dolores the email. Well, hot damn. Dolores grinned. This calls for pie. On the house. They celebrated with cherry pie and coffee. Sarah couldn't stop smiling. The grant money arrived in May. Sarah used it strategically. Course fees, software licenses, a new laptop that didn't crash every time she ran design programs. She also set aside money for childcare, hiring a local teenager named Maria to watch Emma 2 afternoons a week while Sarah studied. You're really doing this, Eleanor said, watching Sarah work on a design project. I'm really doing this. Maggie would be proud. I hope so. Sometimes I feel like I'm still just pretending to have my life together. Honey, everyone's pretending. Some of us are just better at it than others. The certification exam was scheduled for August. Sarah studied every spare moment she had. Flashcards while Emma napped. Practice problems during her lunch break at the diner. Review sessions that stretched past midnight. Ruth noticed the strain at Emma's 2.5-year checkup. Your blood pressure's up. I'm stressed. I can see that. You need to be careful. Stress affects everything. Your health, your mood, your ability to be present for your daughter. I know. I just need to get through this exam. And then what? There'll be another exam, another challenge, another reason to run yourself into the ground. Ruth looked at her seriously. You can't pour from an empty cup, Sarah. Take care of yourself so you can take care of her. Sarah promised to try. She wasn't sure she believed herself. The second visit from Consolidated came in June. This time it wasn't Richard Crane. It was a woman named Victoria Shaw, smoother and more dangerous. Miss Mitchell. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I'm here to offer a genuine partnership. I'm not interested in partnering with your company. Hear me out. We're not asking you to sell. We're proposing a new lease agreement. Better terms than what you have now. Significantly better. Sarah crossed her arms. My current lease is fine. Your current lease pays you around $24,000 a year. We're prepared to offer $75,000 annually for 20 years. Sarah's heart stopped. $75,000 a year. That was life-changing money. That was Emma's college fund and a new car and financial security beyond anything she'd imagined. Victoria Shaw watched her calculate. That's a compelling offer, isn't it? What's the catch? No catch. Just a new agreement that reflects current market values. If there's no catch, why are you offering 3 times what I'm getting now? Victoria's smile tightened slightly. Because we want to be good neighbors. Because your property is strategically located. Because you want control of my mineral rights. We want a partnership. You want me to sign away Maggie's lease for a new one that probably has escape clauses and revision terms buried in the fine print. Victoria's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. You've been talking to Thomas Wright. I have a lawyer. Is that a problem? Not at all. Have him review our offer. I think you'll find it's quite generous. She handed Sarah a folder. Take your time, but not too much time. This offer has an expiration date. Sarah took the folder. She didn't open it until Victoria Shaw was gone. Then she called Thomas Wright. They offered me $75,000 a year. Thomas whistled. That's a lot of money. What's wrong with it? I haven't seen the documents yet, but if they're offering that much, it means your rights are worth more. Probably a lot more. How much more? Send me the paperwork. I'll tell you exactly what you'd be giving up. The answer came back 3 days later. Thomas called her at 7 in the morning. Don't sign anything. What did you find? The new lease includes a modification clause. If drilling technology improves, which it will, they can renegotiate terms at any time. The $75,000 is a starting point, not a guarantee. So they could lower it. They could do whatever they want. Your aunt's lease is locked in. This new one gives them flexibility. That's what they're buying. Why would I ever agree to that? You wouldn't, unless you didn't read the fine print, or didn't have a lawyer who knew what to look for. Sarah felt cold. They thought I'd just sign. They hoped you would. A lot of people do. Big number, complicated documents, urgent timeline. It's designed to overwhelm. What do I tell them? Tell them no, politely but firmly. And document the conversation. Sarah hung up and sat at her kitchen table for a long time. $75,000. She'd almost said yes. For about 30 seconds, she'd imagined what that money could do. The security, the freedom, everything she'd dreamed about since Marcus left. But Aunt Maggie hadn't built this foundation, so Sarah could sell it for short-term gain. She'd built it to last. Sarah called Victoria Shaw that afternoon. I'm declining your offer. Ms. Mitchell, I really think you should reconsider. I've had my lawyer review the documents. The modification clause alone makes this unacceptable. Silence on the other end. I see. You've done your homework. I learned from my aunt. Well, Victoria's voice hardened slightly. I'm sorry we couldn't reach an agreement. I hope you won't regret this decision. Is that a threat? It's a professional observation. Good day, Ms. Mitchell. The line went dead. Sarah's hands were shaking, but she'd held the line. For Maggie, for Emma, for herself. The exam was in 3 weeks. Sarah studied with desperate intensity, trying to cram years of missed knowledge into her exhausted brain. Emma sensed something was wrong. Mama said, Mama's just tired, baby. Hug. Emma climbed into her lap and wrapped tiny arms around her neck. Sarah held her daughter and felt tears streaming down her face. I'm trying so hard, she whispered. I'm trying so hard to make this work. Emma patted her cheek. Good mama. Sarah laughed through her tears. Thank you, baby. I needed that. The exam day arrived hot and humid. Sarah drove to Louisville, leaving Emma with Eleanor for the full day. You're going to do great, Eleanor said. What if I fail? Then you take it again, but you won't fail. You've worked too hard. Sarah wasn't so sure. The testing center was crowded with other candidates, all of them looking as nervous as she felt. She found her seat, opened her materials, and tried to remember how to breathe. 4 hours later, she walked out on shaking legs. She had no idea how she'd done. Some sections had felt solid. Others had felt like disasters. The waiting would be agony. Results wouldn't come for 6 weeks. Sarah drove home in silence, too exhausted even for music. Eleanor was waiting with dinner. How'd it go? I don't know. I either passed or I failed spectacularly. There's no middle ground. When do you find out? 6 weeks. Then we wait 6 weeks. In the meantime, eat. You look like you haven't had a real meal in months. Sarah ate. It was the best food she'd had in weeks. Emma turned 3 the week before the results came. Sarah threw another party bigger this time. More neighbors, more friends, a bounce house that Jim Henderson somehow acquired from a cousin in Tennessee. This is too much, Sarah said. Nonsense, a kid only turns 3 once. Emma shrieked with joy, bouncing with abandon. Sarah watched her daughter and felt something shift inside her. Whatever happened with the exam, she had this. This life she'd built. This community that had become family. This child who was healthy and happy and completely unaware of how close they'd come to having nothing. That was worth more than N certification. The email arrived on a Thursday morning. Sarah saw the notification and couldn't bring herself to open it for 3 hours. She worked her shift at the diner. She picked up Emma from Eleanor's. She made dinner and gave Emma a bath and read her a story. Only after Emma was asleep did she finally sit down at her laptop. Her hands trembled as she clicked. Dear Ms. Mitchell, we are pleased to inform you that you have successfully passed the architecture certification examination. Sarah screamed. Emma woke up crying. Sarah ran to her room and picked her up. Mama's sorry, baby. Mama's sorry. But Mama passed. Emma had no idea what that meant, but she laughed anyway because her mother was laughing. Sarah called everyone. Eleanor cried. Dolores whooped so loud Sarah had to hold the phone away from her ear. Ruth said she always knew Sarah could do it. Thomas Wright sent a bottle of champagne that Sarah couldn't afford to reciprocate. Patricia Chen, all the way in Boston, sent a text, knew you had it in you, now go build something amazing. Sarah looked around her house at the walls she'd repaired and the floors she'd refinished and the life she'd constructed from nothing. She'd already built something amazing. But she was just getting started. The first client came through word of mouth. A farmer named Wilson, 3 properties over, needed plans for a new barn. His old one had collapsed in a storm. Eleanor says you're an architect. I am. You any good? I'm getting better. Wilson looked at her for a long moment. Maggie Holloway's niece. She was good people. I'll give you a shot. The barn project took 2 months. Sarah designed it in her kitchen, Emma playing at her feet. She consulted with Wilson on every detail, learning about load requirements and equipment storage and all the practical considerations she'd never dealt with in her city architecture days. The final plans were solid, functional, not beautiful in any traditional sense, but right for the land and the purpose. Wilson paid her $3,000. It was the first money Sarah had earned as an architect in 4 years. She framed the check before depositing it. More clients followed, a home addition for the Petersons down the road, a small office building for a lawyer in town, a renovation project for the local library. Nothing glamorous, nothing that would win awards, but real work, meaningful work, work that mattered to people who needed it. Sarah cut her hours at the diner to part-time, then to weekends only. I'm going to miss having you around full-time, Dolores said. I'm not going anywhere. This is still home. I know. I'm still allowed to miss you. Sarah hugged her. Thank you for everything, for giving me a chance when I had nothing. You never had nothing. Dolores squeezed her tight. You had grit. That's worth more than money any day. The final confrontation with Consolidated came in October. Richard Crane appeared at her door again, but this time he wasn't smiling. Ms. Mitchell, we need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. Our company has been patient. We've made generous offers. We've tried to work with you. You've tried to manipulate me. There's a difference. Crane's face hardened. There's going to be a new access road built through this area. It will pass directly adjacent to your property. Construction will be disruptive. Is that your final play, annoy me with construction noise? I'm simply informing you of development plans. And I'm simply informing you that I'm not selling. Not now, not ever. This land was my aunt's. Now it's my daughter's. And someday it'll be her children's. That's not negotiable. Crane stared at her. You're making a mistake. The only mistake I ever made was trusting a man who lied to me. I learned from that. I learned that the people who pressure you to decide quickly are usually the ones who benefit from your confusion. Sarah stepped closer. So pressure all you want. I'm not confused, and I'm not afraid. Something flickered in Crane's eyes. Not respect, exactly, but recognition. I'll pass along your position to my superiors. You do that. He left without another word. Sarah watched his car disappear down the dirt road, then went inside and called Thomas Wright. They're backing off. How do you know? Because he came to threaten me in person. That's desperation. If they had real leverage, they'd use it. They don't. They just hoped I'd fold. Chkamule? Thomas was quiet for a moment. You've learned a lot in 3 years. I had good teachers. Sarah hung up and sat down on her couch. Emma climbed up beside her. Mama, okay? Mama's great baby. Mama won. Won what? Sarah looked around at the house that had seemed like a punishment 3 years ago, at the life she'd built from nothing, at the daughter who was the best thing that had ever happened to her. Everything, she said. I won everything that matters. The years that followed moved faster than Sarah expected. Emma turned 4, then 5, then 6. She grew taller, smarter, more stubborn with each passing month. She started preschool, then kindergarten, coming home with drawings and stories and endless questions about everything. Mama, why is the sky blue? Because of the way light bends through the atmosphere. What's atmosphere? The air around the Earth. Why is there air? So we can breathe. Why do we need to breathe? Sarah learned that 6-year-olds could ask why approximately 700 times before running out of energy. She also learned that she loved every single question. The architecture business grew steadily. Word spread through the county and then beyond. Sarah Mitchell, the woman who'd fixed up Maggie Holloway's place, could design buildings that worked. Practical designs, affordable designs. Designs that understood rural life instead of fighting against it. She hired her first employee in Emma's kindergarten year, a young graduate named Michael Chen, who'd grown up 2 towns over and wanted to come back after college. Why here? Sarah asked during the interview. You could work anywhere. That's exactly why. Everyone can work anywhere. But this is where I want to be. This is home. She hired him on the spot. The office started as a converted room in her house. Then it expanded to the old barn, which Jim Henderson helped her renovate into a proper workspace. Sarah drew the plans herself, staying up late to get every detail right. You're building something special here, Jim said when the renovation was finished. I'm trying. No, you're doing it. There's a difference. Eleanor passed away on a quiet Tuesday in March. Sarah got the call from Jim, his voice broken in a way she'd never heard. She went in her sleep, didn't suffer, just didn't wake up. Sarah drove to their house immediately, leaving Emma with Dolores. Jim was sitting on the porch, staring at nothing. Sarah sat beside him without speaking. They stayed that way for an hour. Finally, Jim said, She loved you, loved Emma, said you reminded her of our daughter. I didn't know you had a daughter. We don't talk about her much. She died young. Car accident, long time ago. His voice cracked. Eleanor never stopped missing her. I think that's why she took to you so quick. You needed a mother. She needed someone to mother. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She was family to me, to us. I know. Jim took her hand. She knew too. Made me promise to keep an eye on you after she was gone. Said you'd try to handle everything alone. Said I shouldn't let you. I can handle. That's exactly what she said you'd say. Sarah laughed through her tears. She knew me pretty well. She did, better than most. The funeral was small but crowded. Half the county turned out. Eleanor had touched more lives than Sarah had realized. The church was standing room only, and people lined up afterward to share stories. She brought us dinner every night for a month after my surgery. She drove my kids to school when my car broke down. She sat with my mother when she was dying. Never asked for anything in return. Sarah listened to story after story and understood something she hadn't before. This was what it meant to matter, not fame or fortune or professional success. Just being there. Showing up. Helping when help was needed. Eleanor had done that her whole life. Sarah wanted to do it too. Emma started first grade in September. She was nervous the night before, unable to sleep. What if nobody likes me? Everyone will like you. What if I'm not smart enough? You're plenty smart. What if... Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. What if you forget to pick me up? Sarah pulled her daughter close. I will never, ever forget to pick you up. You understand me? Never. Promise. I promise. You're the most important thing in my world. Nothing comes before you. Nothing. Emma relaxed slightly. Okay. Okay? Okay? I trust you, Mama. Those 3 words hit Sarah harder, something harder than she expected. I trust you. Marcus had destroyed her trust, shattered it into pieces she'd thought could never be put back together. But here was her daughter trusting completely without reservation. Sarah had rebuilt more than a house. She'd rebuilt herself. The first parent-teacher conference came in October. Emma is exceptional, Mrs. Rodriguez said. Her reading level is 2 grades ahead. Her creativity is off the charts, but what? She struggles with group activities. She prefers to work alone. She gets frustrated when other children don't understand things as quickly as she does. Is that a problem? Not yet, but social skills matter as much as academic ones. She needs to learn patience, collaboration, how to meet people where they are. Sarah nodded slowly. I understand. I'll work with her at home. I'm not criticizing Ms. Mitchell. Emma is wonderful. She just needs balance. Most gifted children do. Gifted. Sarah turned the word over in her mind. Her daughter was gifted. The girl who'd been conceived in a failing marriage, born in a falling-down house, raised by a mother who'd lost everything that girl was gifted. Life was strange. The call came on a Wednesday afternoon. Sarah was reviewing plans for a new community center when her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. "Ms. Mitchell, this is Detective Hernandez with the Las Vegas Police Department." Sarah's blood went cold. "What's this about?" "We're conducting an investigation into financial crimes associated with your ex-husband, Marcus Mitchell. I understand he passed away several years ago." "That's correct. We've recently discovered that some of the accounts he used are still active. Money is still moving through them." "I don't understand. How is that possible?" "That's what we're trying to determine. We believe someone else may have been involved in his schemes, someone who's still operating." Sarah sat down hard. "Are you saying Marcus had a partner?" "We're saying it's possible. We'd like to ask you some questions. Can you come to Vegas, or would you prefer we send someone to Kentucky?" "Send someone. I have a daughter. I can't leave." "Understood. We'll be in touch." Sarah hung up and stared at the wall. Someone else had been involved. Someone who might still be out there. Someone who knew about Marcus's operations and might know about Sarah. She called Thomas Wright immediately. "Don't panic," he said after she explained. "This might be nothing. Old investigations turn up loose ends all the time. And if it's not nothing, then we deal with it. Together. You're not alone in this, Sarah." "I feel alone." "You're not. Remember that." The detective arrived a week later. Detective Maria Hernandez was compact and intense with sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. "Thank you for meeting with me, Ms. Mitchell. I want to help however I can. Let's start with what you remember about your husband's activities." Sarah told her everything. The discovery of the debt, the forged signatures, the gambling receipts, Marcus's confession before he died. Detective Hernandez took careful notes. "Did he ever mention anyone else, a partner, an associate, anyone who helped him with the financial aspects?" "No, I assumed he was acting alone." "The accounts we've traced suggest otherwise. The transfers were sophisticated, professional. Your husband was a gambler, not a financial expert. Someone else was handling the money." Sarah thought hard. "Kevin, his business partner, Kevin Park. He said Marcus stole from him too, but he knew Marcus was struggling. He admitted that after Marcus died, said he should have seen the signs. We've already spoken with Mr. Park. His finances check out. He was a victim like you." "Then I don't know who else it could be." Detective Hernandez closed her notebook. "One more question. After your husband died, did anyone contact you? Anyone unexpected, asking about money or accounts or anything related to Marcus's affairs?" Sarah's mind flashed to Richard Crane. "Victoria Shaw, Consolidated Energy. A company tried to buy my property. They were aggressive." "What company?" "Consolidated Energy Partners. But that was about mineral rights, nothing to do with Marcus." "Are you sure?" Sarah paused. "I don't know. I assumed it was about the gas lease. Why?" "Probably nothing, but I've learned not to trust coincidences." Detective Hernandez stood. "If you remember anything else, call me directly, day or night." "You're scaring me, Detective." "I don't mean to. I just want you to be careful. If someone was helping your husband, they've stayed hidden for years. That takes planning, patience, intelligence." "You think I'm in danger?" "I think you should be aware, that's all." After the detective left, Sarah sat on her porch and watched Emma play in the yard. Her daughter was chasing butterflies, laughing, completely unaware that somewhere out there, someone connected to her father's crimes might still exist. Sarah had thought the past was behind her. Maybe it wasn't. The investigation continued for months. Detective Hernandez called periodically with updates, though mostly to say there were no updates. The trail kept going cold. Whoever Marcus's partner had been, they were careful. Sarah tried to focus on her life. Emma turned 7. The architecture firm landed its biggest contract yet, a series of affordable housing units for the county. Michael Chen proved invaluable, taking on projects Sarah couldn't handle alone. "You need to hire more people," he told her one afternoon. "I know." "Then why haven't you?" "Because expanding means risk. Risk means potentially losing what I've built." Michael looked at her thoughtfully. "You're thinking about it wrong." "How should I be thinking about it?" "Growth isn't about risking what you have. It's about building something bigger than yourself, something that can continue even if you're not here." Sarah considered that. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from watching you. You built this from nothing. Now build it bigger." She hired 2 more architects that month. The firm moved from the barn to an actual office building in town, a small one, nothing fancy but professional. Sarah Mitchell Architecture became a real company, not just one woman with a laptop, something permanent. Jim Henderson came to the ribbon cutting. "Eleanor would have loved this," he said quietly. "I know. I keep thinking about what she'd say." "She'd say, 'Stop working so hard and come have dinner.' That's what she'd say." Sarah laughed. "You're probably right." "I'm definitely right, which is why you're coming to my place tonight. I've been practicing her recipes. They're not as good, but they're edible. Jim, no arguments, you and Emma, 6 o'clock. I'll make her favorite." Sarah hugged him. "Thank you for everything, for being family when I didn't have any." "You've always had family, Sarah. Sometimes it just takes a while to find them." Emma's second grade year brought unexpected challenges. "Someone said my daddy was a bad man." Sarah froze over the dishes. "What?" "Tommy Peterson. He said his mom told him my daddy was a criminal who stole money and ran away." Sarah dried her hands carefully, trying to control her expression. "Come here, baby." Emma climbed onto her lap. "Your daddy made some very bad choices. He hurt people, including me, but that doesn't make you bad. That doesn't make anything about you wrong. Do you understand, Humpuyu? Was he really a criminal?" "He did criminal things, yes." "Why, Sarah thought about how to answer. "Sometimes people get lost. They start making small bad choices and then bigger ones, and then they can't find their way back. Your daddy got lost." "Did he love me?" "He never met you, baby. But yes, he loved the idea of you. He told me that before he died." "He died?" Sarah realized she'd never told Emma the full truth. "Yes, he was very sick. He died when you were still a baby." Emma was quiet for a long moment. "I'm glad I have you, Mama." "I'm glad I have you too, baby. More than you'll ever know." The confrontation with Tommy Peterson's mother happened at school pickup the next day. "Mrs. Peterson?" The woman turned, her expression immediately defensive. "Ms. Mitchell, I understand you've been discussing my family history with your son." "I merely mentioned, you told a 7-year-old that his classmate's father was a criminal. My daughter came home in tears. I was just being honest." "You were being cruel. There's a difference." Sarah stepped closer. "My daughter is not responsible for her father's actions, neither am I, and if you have opinions about my family, you share them with me, not with children who repeat them to hurt other children." Mrs. Peterson's face reddened. "I didn't mean for... I don't care what you meant. I care what you did. Stay away from my daughter, and teach your son that words can hurt." Sarah walked away before she said something she'd regret. Her hands were shaking, but she'd protected Emma. That's what mattered. The call from Detective Hernandez came on a Tuesday night. "We found something." Sarah's heart hammered. "What?" "Marcus's partner. We know who it was." "Who?" "A man named David Park. Kevin Park's brother. His cousin, actually. He worked in finance, had access to sophisticated money laundering operations. He's been running the same schemes for years using different fronts." "Is he in custody?" "Not yet. He disappeared when we got close. But we know who he is now. We'll find him." "Why are you telling me this?" Detective Hernandez paused. "Because David Park knows about the money Marcus hid. The IRA account. The money you've been using." Sarah's blood went cold. "He knows about that." "He knows it exists. He doesn't know where it is. But if he's desperate enough, he might come looking." "Are you saying I'm in danger?" "I'm saying you should be careful. Keep your doors locked. Pay attention to anything unusual. And if anyone contacts you about Marcus or money or anything related, call me immediately." Sarah hung up and checked every lock in the house. Then she sat by Emma's bed, watching her daughter sleep. Marcus's past was reaching for them. She wouldn't let it touch Emma, no matter what. The next few weeks passed in tense vigilance. Sarah installed a security system. She varied her routines. She watched for unfamiliar cars, unfamiliar faces, anything out of place. Nothing happened. Maybe nothing would. Or maybe David Park was waiting for the right moment. The break came in April. Detective Hernandez called again. "We got him. David Park was arrested in Phoenix trying to cross into Mexico. He's in federal custody." Sarah's legs gave out. She sat down hard on her kitchen floor. "It's over. The investigation will continue for a while. There might be a trial. You might be called to testify. But yes, the immediate danger is over. He can't hurt you." "Thank you. Thank you so much." "Just doing my job, Ms. Mitchell, but for what it's worth, you handled this well. A lot of people would have fallen apart." "I couldn't afford to fall apart. I have someone depending on me." "That's what keeps most of us going." Take care of yourself and that daughter of yours." Sarah hung up and cried with relief. It was finally truly over. Marcus's shadow had been chasing her for years. Now it was gone. Spring turned to summer. Emma finished second grade with straight A's and a best friend named Maya, whose family had moved to the area the year before. Can Maya sleep over? If her parents say it's okay. They said yes already. Please, Mama. Sarah pretended to consider. Well, I suppose. Yay. The sleepover was loud and chaotic and wonderful. Sarah listened to the girls laughing from the kitchen and felt something she'd almost forgotten how to feel. Peace, real peace, not the absence of crisis, the presence of joy. Jim Henderson invited them to dinner every Sunday. It had become a tradition after Eleanor died, a way to keep the connection alive, a reason for Jim to cook and for Sarah to take a break. "You're looking better," Jim said one evening, watching Sarah help Emma with seconds. "I feel better." "The investigation stuff is done." "All done. The partner is in prison. The accounts are closed. It's finished." "Good," Jim nodded. "You deserve some peace." "I'm starting to believe that." "About time." Emma looked up from her plate. "Mr. Henderson, can you teach me to fish?" Jim's face lit up. "I've been waiting for you to ask. We'll go Saturday if your mama says yes." Sarah smiled. "Mama says yes." The fishing trips became regular. Emma loved them. She loved Jim. She loved the quiet patience of waiting for a bite, the excitement when something tugged the line, even the disappointment when fish got away. "She's got natural talent," Jim reported, "and more patience than I expected." "She gets that from Maggie, I think, not from me." "You've got more patience than you give yourself credit for." "I've had to learn." "That's how patience works. Nobody's born with it." Emma turned 8 on a perfect September day. Sarah threw the biggest party yet. Half her daughter's class came. There was a bounce house, a cake shaped like a unicorn, and more sugar consumed than Sarah wanted to think about. Best birthday ever. Emma declared that night, exhausted and happy. Better than last year. Better than every year. "I'm glad, baby." "Mama." "Yeah. Thank you for everything, for making me feel safe." Sarah's heart clenched. "That's my job." "No, it's more than a job. You do it because you love me." "I do love you more than anything in the whole world." "I know," Emma smiled sleepily. "That's what makes it special." She was asleep within minutes. Sarah watched her breathe and thought about everything they'd survived. The betrayal, the debt, the homelessness, the fear. And here they were. Safe. Loved. Home. The anniversary of inheriting the house came in October. 8 years since Sarah had stood in that motel parking lot holding a letter about a worthless property. 8 years since she'd driven through the night with nothing but hope and desperation. 8 years since she'd walked through a door that would change everything. Sarah spent the morning walking the property, remembering the porch she'd rebuilt, the garden she'd planted, the barn that was now an office, the life she'd constructed from nothing. Thinking deep thoughts. She turned to find Jim watching her from the driveway. Just remembering. Good memories or bad? Both, but mostly good now. The bad ones are fading. That's how it works. Time doesn't heal everything, but it puts things in perspective. Sarah nodded. 8 years ago, I thought this place was the end of the road. Turns out it was the beginning. Maggie knew what she was doing, leaving it to you. Did she? I still don't really understand why. We barely knew each other. Jim was quiet for a moment. She told me once, years ago, said she'd been watching you from a distance, said you had something she recognized. What resilience, the ability to get knocked down and get back up. She said most people have limits, break them hard enough and they stay broken. But some people, the rare ones, they rebuild. They come back stronger. Jim looked at her. She saw that in you, even before you knew it was there. Sarah blinked back tears. I wish I could have thanked her. You are thanking her, every day. Every time you make something good out of something hard. That's the only thanks people like Maggie ever want. The business hit a milestone in November. 10 employees, 20 completed projects. Revenue that made Sarah blink when her accountant showed her the numbers. You're doing well, the accountant said, really well. It doesn't feel real. It's real, and it's sustainable. You've built something solid here. Sarah looked at the financial reports. 8 years ago, she'd been drowning in debt. Now she was employing people, creating things, contributing to a community that had saved her when she needed saving. The wheel had turned, and she'd helped turn it. Emma came home from school one afternoon with a question. "Mama, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Sarah laughed. "I think I'm already grown-up, baby." "I know, but what do you want to be like when you're really old?" "How old is really old?" "Like 50. Sarah pretended to be offended. 50 isn't that old. It's pretty old. So what do you want to be? Sarah thought about it seriously. I want to be someone who helped, who made things better for other people, who built things that lasted. You already do that. Then I want to keep doing it, and I want to watch you grow up and become whoever you're going to be. Emma considered this. I want to be a marine biologist, or an astronaut, or maybe a chef. Those are very different things. I know, but I have time to decide. You do. You have all the time in the world. Emma hugged her. I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby. To the moon and back. To the moon and back and around again. It was their phrase, their ritual, their reminder that some things never changed. Sarah held her daughter and felt the weight of everything they'd been through, and the lightness of everything they'd become. The year ended quietly. No crises, no confrontations, just ordinary days strung together into an ordinary life. Sarah had learned to appreciate ordinary. She'd learned that peace wasn't boring. It was precious. Jim came for Christmas dinner. So did Dolores and her husband, and Ruth and her family, and Michael Chen and his girlfriend. The house was full of people and food and laughter. Emma ran between groups, showing off presents, asking everyone to play with her new games. Sarah stood in the kitchen doorway, watching. You okay, Ma'am? Dolores asked, coming up beside her. Better than okay. You've come a long way from that scared girl who walked into my diner. I was pretty scared. You were terrified, but you showed up anyway. That's what courage is, you know. Being scared and showing up anyway. Sarah nodded. I had good people helping me. You had people willing to help. You did the hard work yourself. Dolores squeezed her arm. Don't sell yourself short. You earned this, every bit of it. Sarah looked at her house full of family, not by blood, but by choice. At her daughter, healthy and happy and loved. At the life she'd built from the ruins of everything she'd lost. Dolores was right. She had earned this, and she was just getting started. The years that followed moved like water through Sarah's fingers. Emma turned 9, then 10, then 11. Each birthday marked another milestone, another reminder of how far they'd traveled from that motel parking lot where everything had begun. The architecture firm expanded beyond Sarah's wildest imagination. 20 employees by Emma's 10th birthday, 30 by her 11th. Projects spanning 3 states with a reputation for sustainable rural design that attracted attention from places Sarah had never expected. There's a reporter from the Times calling again. Michael Chen told her one morning. Which Times? The New York one. Sarah nearly dropped her coffee. You're joking. They want to do a feature on rural architecture innovation. Someone mentioned your name. Who? Does it matter? This is huge, Sarah. National exposure. She took the call that afternoon. The reporter was professional, thorough, genuinely interested in how a woman who'd lost everything had built something meaningful from nothing. What's the secret? He asked at the end of the interview. How did you turn it around? Sarah thought carefully before answering. There's no secret, just showing up, day after day, especially when it's hard, especially when it seems pointless. You show up anyway. The article ran in December. Sarah Mitchell building hope in rural America. Her phone didn't stop ringing for weeks. Jim Henderson framed the article and hung it in his living room. Eleanor would have bought 50 copies, he said. She would have handed them out to everyone in town. She would have embarrassed me completely. That's what family does. Emma started middle school with the confidence of a child who'd never known real instability. She joined the debate team, the art club, the track team. She made friends easily, lost friends, occasionally navigated the complicated social terrain of adolescence with more grace than Sarah had managed at that age. Mom, can I go to Maya's this weekend? Which day? From both? Both? That's a lot of Maya time. Please, her parents said it's fine. We're working on a project. What kind of project? Emma hesitated just long enough for Sarah to notice. School stuff. Emma. Okay, fine. There's a boy. Sarah's heart did something complicated. A boy? His name is Tyler. He's Maya's neighbor. We're not dating or anything. We just talk sometimes. Talk about what? Well, Mom, please don't make this weird. I'm not making it weird. I'm asking normal parent questions. You're making it weird. Sarah took a breath. Fine, you can go, but I want to meet this Tyler at some point. Eventually, not yet. Please. Eventually, Emma hugged her quickly and ran off to text Maya. Sarah sat in her kitchen and wondered when exactly her baby had become a person with secrets and crushes and a life that didn't include her in every detail. It was natural, normal, healthy. It still hurt a little. The call came from Patricia Chen on a Wednesday afternoon. "Sarah, I have news, big news." "Good news or bad news?" "Good, very good." Patricia paused. "Remember David Park Marcus's partner?" "Of course." "He died in prison last month, heart attack, but before he died, he wrote a letter to you." Sarah's stomach clenched. "I don't want to read anything from him." "You might want to read this one. It's an apology, and something else." "What else?" "There's money, Sarah. Money he hid. Money that apparently belonged to Marcus originally. He left instructions for returning it to you." "How much money?" Patricia was quiet for a moment. $240,000. Sarah had to sit down. "That's not possible." "It's very possible. Marcus was gambling with larger sums than anyone knew. Park was laundering money for multiple clients. Some of it was legitimate, well legitimate in the sense that Marcus actually earned it before he lost everything else." "I don't understand." "Neither did I at first, but Park kept records, detailed records. He wanted to make amends before he died. This is his way of doing it." Sarah stared at the wall. $240,000, enough to pay for Emma's entire college education, enough to expand the business, enough to do whatever she wanted. "Is it legal? Can I actually take this money?" "The FBI has reviewed everything. It's clean, or clean enough. They're not going to pursue claims against money being returned to a victim." "A victim?" "That's what you are, Sarah. That's what you've always been in this. Marcus hurt you. Park hurt you. This is restitution. Take it." Sarah hung up and sat in silence for a long time. Money for Marcus's crimes. Money that had caused so much pain. Now it was coming back to her. She didn't know how to feel. She told Emma that night. Not all the details, just the broad strokes. "Your father made mistakes with money, bad mistakes, but someone is giving some of that money back to us now." "How much?" "Enough for college, and then some." Emma was quiet. "Is it weird that I don't feel anything?" "What do you mean, Amira?" "About my father. When you talk about him, I know I should feel something. Sad or angry or something, but I just feel nothing. He's like a character in a story, not a real person." Sarah took her daughter's hand. "That's okay. He wasn't part of your life. You don't owe him emotions you don't have." "Do you still feel things about him?" Sarah considered the question honestly. "I used to feel a lot, angry, hurt, betrayed. But now I mostly just feel grateful." "Grateful for what?" "For you, for this life, for everything that came after." Sarah squeezed Emma's hand. "The bad things he did led us here. I can't hate him for that, not anymore." Emma leaned against her shoulder. "I'm glad we ended up here too." "Me too, baby, me too." The money arrived in January. Sarah deposited it into a trust for Emma's education and didn't touch a penny for anything else. It felt like the right thing to do, maybe the only thing to do. Emma turned 13 the month after. Officially a teenager. Sarah wasn't ready. "I'm not a baby anymore, Mom." "You'll always be my baby." "That's exactly what I'm talking about." "Fine. You're a mature young woman who will always be my baby." Emma rolled her eyes so hard Sarah worried they might stick. "You're impossible. I learned from the best." High school arrived faster than Sarah expected. Emma started 9th grade with nervous energy and big dreams. "I want to take all the hard classes. All of them. AP everything. I want to be ready for college." "You have 4 years to get ready for college." "Exactly. 4 years to take as many hard classes as possible." Sarah recognized that determination. She'd seen it in the mirror often enough. "Fine, but if your grades slip?" "They won't." "If they do, They won't, Mom. I promise." They didn't. Emma made honor roll every semester. She joined the robotics club, the environmental club, the community service organization. She volunteered at the animal shelter on weekends and tutored younger kids after school. "When do you sleep?" Sarah asked. "Sleep is for people without goals." "Sleep is for people who want to stay healthy." "I'm fine, Mom, really." She wasn't fine. Sarah found her crying in her room at 2 in the morning during sophomore year. "Emma, what's wrong?" "Nothing. I'm fine." "You're clearly not fine." Emma wiped her face. "It's just, there's so much pressure. Everyone expects me to be perfect. Teachers, colleges, myself. I feel like if I make one mistake, everything falls apart. Sarah sat on the bed beside her. I know that feeling. You do. When I was rebuilding our life, I felt like that every day. Like one wrong move would send us back to nothing. Like I couldn't afford to fail even once. How did you handle it? Not always well, but eventually I learned something important. What? Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of success. Every mistake teaches you something. Every setback makes you stronger. The only real failure is giving up. Emma leaned against her. What if I'm not good enough? Good enough for what? For everything. College, life, being the person everyone thinks I am. Sarah held her daughter close. You're already good enough, right now, exactly as you are. Everything else is just extra. You have to say that. You're my mom. I say it because it's true, and because I know something about not feeling good enough. I spent years feeling that way. It took losing everything to realize that enough isn't about achievement. It's about being present, showing up, doing your best with what you have. Is that what Aunt Maggie taught you? In a way, she taught me that worthless is a matter of perspective. This house everyone said was worthless. It saved us. You who some people might have seen as a burden, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Emma was quiet for a moment. Thanks, Mom. For what? For always knowing what to say. I don't always know, I just keep trying. That's what makes it work. Jim Henderson died peacefully in his sleep the summer before Emma's junior year. Sarah got the call from his neighbor at 7 in the morning. She sat on her porch and cried for an hour before she could tell Emma. He was like a grandfather to me, Emma said, her own tears falling. I know, baby. He loved you so much. He taught me to fish, and to fix things, and to be patient. He taught me things, too, about community, about showing up for people, about what it means to be family. They went to the funeral together holding hands. Half the county came. Jim had touched as many lives as Eleanor, maybe more. At the reception afterward, people kept coming up to Sarah. Jim talked about you all the time. He said you were like a daughter to him. He was so proud of everything you built. Sarah listened to story after story and felt the weight of another loss, but also the weight of gratitude for the time they'd had, for everything Jim and Eleanor had given her, for the family she'd found in the most unexpected places. Jim left the Henderson property to Sarah in his will. She read the document 3 times before she believed it. I can't accept this. It's not a request, the lawyer said. It's done. Jim was very specific. He wanted you to have it. But his family agreed. His children live across the country. None of them wanted to manage a Kentucky property. They knew how much Jim cared about you. They supported his decision. Sarah drove to the Henderson place that afternoon. She walked through the house where she'd had Sunday dinners for years, where Eleanor had taught her to cook, where Jim had shown Emma how to tie fishing lures. Every room held memories. Every corner held ghosts. What am I supposed to do with this? She asked the empty house. The answer came slowly over weeks and months. She converted the Henderson property into a community center, a place for classes, for meetings, for people who needed space to gather and learn and grow. She named it the Henderson Center for Community Development. Eleanor would have loved it. Jim would have pretended to be embarrassed, but secretly been proud. Emma applied to colleges during her senior year. Sarah helped with essays, proofread applications, tried not to hover too obviously. Mom, you're hovering. I'm not hovering, I'm nearby. You're hovering. Fine, I'm hovering, sue me. The acceptances came in March. Stanford, MIT, Duke, Berkeley. Emma had options. Sarah had never dreamed possible. I got into all of them, Emma said, staring at her computer screen. All of them, Mom. Of course you did. This is insane. This is what happens when you work hard and refuse to give up. You earned this, Emma, every bit of it. They celebrated with pizza and ice cream, Emma's favorite combination since childhood. Which one are you going to choose? Sarah asked. I don't know yet. They're all so different. What does your gut say? Emma was quiet for a moment. Berkeley, I think. They have the best environmental science program, and I like California. Then Berkeley. Just like that, you're not going to try to convince me to stay closer. Would it work if I tried? Probably not. Then I'm not going to waste my breath. You've been making good decisions your whole life. I trust you to make this one." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Mom, for trusting me, for always trusting me. That's the easiest thing I've ever done." The summer before Emma left for college passed too quickly. They took a road trip together, just the two of them, driving across the country to California so Emma could see her new home. 3,000 miles of highways and diners and late-night conversations in motel rooms. "Tell me about when you first came here," Emma said one night somewhere in Nevada. "To Kentucky. To Aunt Maggie's house. What was it like?" Sarah thought back to that terrified woman driving through the night with nothing but hope and desperation. "It was the scariest thing I'd ever done, and the best decision I ever made. Even though you didn't know how it would turn out. Especially because I didn't know. That's what makes courage courage. If you knew everything would work out, it wouldn't be brave, it would just be planning." Emma smiled. "I'm scared about college." "I know. What if I fail? Then you'll learn something and try again. What if I don't make friends? You'll make friends. You've always made friends. What if I miss you too much?" Sarah's heart clenched. "Then you'll call me, and I'll remind you that missing someone means you have someone worth missing. That's a gift, Emma. Not everyone has that." "Will you miss me?" "Every single day, but I'll also be proud of you. Every single day. The missing and the pride will balance out. Promise. Promise." Move-in day at Berkeley was chaos and emotion. Sarah helped carry boxes up 3 flights of stairs because the elevator was broken. She made Emma's bed with the sheets they'd bought together. She met the roommate, a cheerful girl from Oregon named Jessica, who seemed genuinely nice. And then it was time to leave. "I'm not ready," Sarah said. "Mom?" "I know. I have to go. You have orientation. You have your whole life ahead of you. I know." They hugged in the hallway while other parents and students streamed past. "I love you," Sarah whispered. "I'm so proud of you. You're the best thing I ever did. You're the best mom I could have asked for. Call me when you're settled. I'll call you tonight and tomorrow and probably every day for the first week until you tell me to stop. I'll never tell you to stop." One more hug, then Sarah made herself walk away. She cried all the way to the airport. Then she cried on the plane. Then she cried in her car in the parking lot at home. Then she walked into her empty house and cried some more. The house felt different without Emma. Quieter, emptier, too big for one person. Sarah threw herself into work. The architecture firm had more projects than ever. The Henderson Center needed constant attention. There were board meetings, design reviews, community events. She stayed busy because being busy was easier than being alone. Dolores noticed. "You're working yourself to death." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're avoiding." "Avoiding what?" "Feeling things. Processing. You've spent 18 years being Emma's mother. Now you have to figure out who else you are." Sarah stared at her coffee. "What if I don't know who else I am?" "Then you figure it out, like you figured out everything else, one day at a time." Emma called every night that first month. Stories about classes, professors, roommate drama, the boy down the hall who was cute but annoying. Sarah listened to every word, treasuring the connection. "Mom, you need to get a life." "I have a life." "You have work. That's not the same thing." "Work is plenty." "Work is not plenty. You need friends, hobbies, maybe someone. You know what I mean." Sarah sighed. "I'm fine, Emma. You raised me to aim higher than fine. Take your own advice." The words stung because they were true. Sarah started doing things. She joined a book club at the library. She took a pottery class at the Henderson Center. She said yes when Dolores' son invited her to dinner. His name was Robert, recently divorced. Kind eyes. A laugh that made her feel warm in unexpected ways. "I'm not looking for anything serious," she said on their first date. "Neither am I." "Good, as long as we're clear." "Crystal clear." They went on a second date anyway, then a third, then more. Robert was patient, understanding. He didn't push for more than she was ready to give. "You're different from anyone I've dated," he said one evening. "Different how you're complete, like you don't need someone else to make you whole. Most people are walking around with pieces missing, hoping someone else will fill the gaps. You're not like that." "I spent a long time being broken. I had to learn to put myself back together." "You did a good job." "I had help." Robert became a regular presence without becoming a pressure. He met Emma during Christmas break and survived the interrogation. "He seems nice," Emma admitted afterward. "He is nice." "Do you love him?" Sarah considered the question. "I care about him. A lot. Whether it's love, I'm not sure I know what that means anymore." "Maybe it means something different now than it did before." "Maybe. When did you get so wise?" "I learned from watching you." Emma graduated from Berkeley in 4 years with honors. Sarah flew out for the ceremony, sitting in the audience with Robert on one side and Dolores on the other. When Emma walked across the stage, Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. The baby she'd carried through homelessness and fear. The toddler who'd taken her first steps in a falling down house. The little girl who'd painted her room yellow and believed in happy endings. She was a woman now, a college graduate, ready to take on the world. After the ceremony, Emma found her in the crowd. "I did it, Mom." "You did it. We did it together." They held each other for a long time while people flowed around them. "What now?" Sarah asked finally. "I got a job offer, environmental consulting firm in San Francisco. I start in August." "That's wonderful, baby. That's everything you wanted." "It's because of you. Everything I am is because of you." "No, everything you are is because of you. I just provided the foundation. You built the rest." Emma laughed through her tears. "Still sounds like you?" "Still sounds like us?" Life settled into a new rhythm. Emma in San Francisco building her career. Sarah in Kentucky running her business and her community center and her life with Robert. They talked weekly, visited when they could, stayed connected across the miles. "I'm thinking about proposing to Robert." Sarah told Emma during one call. "Wait, you're proposing?" "Why not? I'm not traditional. Never have been." "True, do it. He'll say yes?" "You think—" "I know." Sarah proposed on a Tuesday evening on the porch of the house that had changed everything. Robert said yes before she finished the question. "I've been waiting for you to be ready," he said. "I would have waited forever." "You don't have to wait anymore." They got married in the spring at the Henderson Center. Small ceremony, close friends. Emma as maid of honor. "I'm so happy for you," Emma said during her toast. "You deserve this. You deserve everything good. After everything you survived, you deserve joy." Sarah looked around at the people she loved, at Robert, her husband now, at Emma, her greatest achievement, at the community that had become family. "I'm not sure deserve is the right word," she said quietly, "but I'm grateful, every single day, for all of it." 5 years after the wedding, Emma came home with news. "I'm pregnant." Sarah dropped the dish she was holding. "What? Pregnant? Due in February? You're going to be a grandmother." Sarah sat down hard on a kitchen chair. "A grandmother? Is that okay? Are you happy?" "Happy, Emma, I'm—" She couldn't find words. She just opened her arms. Emma came into them and they held each other, laughing and crying at the same time. "I'm going to be a grandmother," Sarah finally managed. "The best grandmother. I already know it. How I've never done this before." "You've been preparing your whole life. Everything you did for me, you'll do for my baby, and she'll be the luckiest kid in the world." It's a girl? We found out last week." Sarah's heart expanded to make room for love she didn't know she had left. "A girl? I'm having a granddaughter." "We're having a granddaughter, all of us, together." The baby came in February just as predicted. Margaret Rose, named for the aunt who'd made everything possible. Sarah held her granddaughter for the first time and felt the circle complete. This tiny person connected to her through blood and love and history. This continuation of everything she'd built. "Hi, Maggie," she whispered. "I'm your grandmother, and I'm going to tell you stories." "What kind of stories?" Emma asked from the hospital bed. "The kind that matter. About struggle and survival, about getting knocked down and getting back up, about a worthless house that turned out to be worth everything." "She's too little to understand." "She'll grow. And when she's ready, she'll understand." Emma reached out and touched Sarah's arm. "Thank you, Mom." "For what?" "For everything. For fighting when you could have given up. For building something when everyone said you couldn't. For showing me what strength looks like." Sarah looked at her daughter, then at her granddaughter. "I had plenty of reasons to keep going." "The house?" "You, always you. From the moment I knew you were coming, everything I did was for you. The house just gave me a place to do it." Emma smiled through tears. I want to raise Maggie the way you raised me. With poverty and struggle. With love, with determination, with the belief that anything is possible if you refuse to give up. Then she'll turn out fine. Better than fine. She'll turn out extraordinary. The years kept moving forward. Little Maggie grew into a toddler, then a child, then a young girl who looked so much like Emma had at that age that Sarah sometimes got confused. Robert retired and spent his days in the garden. The architecture firm passed to the next generation of employees, with Sarah staying on as an advisor. The Henderson Center thrived, serving hundreds of families each year, and the house, Aunt Maggie's house, Sarah's house, stood solid and strong, weathering storms and seasons and the passage of time. On the 15th anniversary of inheriting the property, Sarah walked the land alone. She was older now, grayer, slower, but still strong, still standing. She thought about the woman she'd been when she first drove down that dirt road, pregnant and terrified, broken by betrayal, certain that her life was over. She thought about everything that had happened since. The struggles, the victories, the love, the loss, the granddaughter who carried Maggie's name, the life she'd built from nothing. Thank you, she said out loud, to the house, to the land, to the aunt who'd seen something in her worth saving. Thank you for believing in me before I believed in myself. The wind rustled through the trees. Birds sang in the garden. Life continued as it always did. Sarah walked back inside and found Robert making tea. Good walk. Perfect walk. Emma called. She's bringing Maggie this weekend. Wonderful. I miss them. You just saw them last month. A month is too long. Robert smiled and handed her a cup. You've built something amazing, Sarah. You know that, right? I built what I needed to build. You built more than that. You built something that will outlast both of us. The business, the center, the family, that's a legacy. Most people never achieve anything like it. Sarah sipped her tea and looked out the window. At the porch she'd repaired. At the garden Emma had helped her plant. At the life that had grown from the most barren soil. I just did what had to be done, she said. One day at a time. That's all any of us can do. Yes, but some of us are luckier than others. I was lucky. Lucky to have help when I needed it. Lucky to find this place. Lucky to survive long enough to build something. It wasn't just luck. No, but luck was part of it. Maggie's foresight was part of it. Eleanor and Jim were part of it. You're part of it. Nothing I did alone. Robert took her hand. That's what makes it worth more, not less. Sarah squeezed his fingers. I know, I finally know that. Little Maggie ran through the door 2 days later, shouting for her grandmother. Grandma Sarah, look what I made. She held up a drawing, a house surrounded by trees, stick figures standing in front. That's beautiful, sweetheart. Who are the people? That's you and Grandpa Robert and Mommy and Daddy and me, and there's Aunt Maggie in heaven watching us. Sarah's heart clenched. You put Aunt Maggie in the picture. Mommy told me about her, how she gave you this house when you had nothing, how she saved you. She did save me, in a way. Mommy says I'm named after her because she was brave. Am I brave, Grandma? Sarah knelt down to look her granddaughter in the eyes. You're the bravest person I know. Even braver than you? Much braver. Because you're starting with everything I didn't have. Love, security, family, and someday you'll use all of that to help someone who needs it, just like Maggie helped me. I will. I know you will. It's in your blood. Little Maggie hugged her tight. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, sweet girl. To the moon and back. To the moon and back and around again. Emma watched from the doorway, tears in her eyes. Sarah looked at her daughter, at her granddaughter, at the house that had made everything possible. She thought about worthless things and priceless things and how often they turned out to be the same. She thought about endings and beginnings and how they circled back on each other like seasons. She thought about a young pregnant woman standing in a motel parking lot holding a letter about a property nobody wanted. That woman had thought her life was over. She'd been wrong. Her life was just beginning. And now, decades later, surrounded by love and family and everything she'd built from nothing, Sarah finally understood the truth that Aunt Maggie had known all along. Worth isn't about what something looks like. It's about what it makes possible. A worthless house had made possible a life beyond anything Sarah had imagined. A life of purpose. A life of meaning. A life that would continue through Emma, through little Maggie, through generations yet to come. That was the real inheritance. Not the property, not the mineral rights, but the understanding that even when everything seems lost, there's always a foundation to build on, always a way forward, always hope. Sarah held her granddaughter and watched her daughter laugh with Robert in the kitchen and felt the weight of everything she'd overcome lift from her shoulders. She had survived. She had thrived. She had built something that would last, and in the end, that was worth more than any amount of money could ever measure. The worthless house had given her everything, and she had given it meaning in return. That was the story. That was the truth. That was the life Sarah Mitchell had built one impossible day at a time, and it was more than enough. It was everything.